Hello, how are you? And I hope you're well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Sharif. I am pleased to share with you this stakeholder-centric design canvas. And what I would like to do over the next 20 minutes is just share with you the reason I created it, how it works, how you can leverage it in your design sprints, strategic conversations, team meetings, and how the aspiration was to really bridge the gap between the design conversation and the business conversation as an outcome of having run hundreds of workshops virtually and physically with many different customers, employees, partners, clients, and so on. We start off by asking the question, why is it called a stakeholder-centric design canvas? Because sometimes it's an employee, sometimes it's a customer, sometimes it's a CFO, sometimes it's a team, and at the end of the day, they're always stakeholders. So I always remind the people that I'm working with that it is this people first, purpose driven, business smart approach. What I want to do is I'm going to share the full flow today and clarify how that flow works and how it can support your business conversations and help co-create value. Um, I think just as a background, 100% this is inspired by Strategyzer's business model generation or business model canvas. I got exposed to the business model canvas at the same time as studying design thinking with IDEO and HPI and the D.school and so on. And for me, it was very clear that these two approaches complement each other and work very well together. Design thinking is quite a linear process, and once you run through one walkthrough, you can kind of go through and then iterate, and you can jump around. Whilst the business model canvas gave us this very holistic, systemic view of the organizational side and the customer side, value side, efficiency side, and I automatically realized that there's a lot of value in having this holistic view. So my question to myself really was, how can I design a canvas that leverages the logic of systemic or holistic thinking as seen in the business model canvas, but bridges or solves the pain points of design sometimes being linear or sometimes being a bit removed from the business or strategic or organizational goals. So how do we make it relevant? So this is my attempt. So let's begin with our stakeholder. It's a human being. It could be a CFO, it could be an employee, it could be your chief marketing officer, it could be a potential client, it could be a partner. But the one key word that differentiates all these definitions of innovation is value, value, value. So who are we creating value for? There's a constraint, describe them in 10 words or less, and then we ask what are their core needs. And needs really drive the conversation, and that's why as a student of psychology and somebody who's quite aware of the different frameworks of needs, be it Maslow or other ones, I also wanted to kind of create this easy to use human needs map that can quickly allow us to look at the different physiological needs, safety and security needs, love and belonging needs, self needs, cognitive and aesthetic needs, as well as spirituality and transcendence. And then you have this modern contextual spine that goes through them: privacy and data security, work-life balance, cultural identity, digital connectivity. Do you have Wi-Fi? No, I'm not coming. And information access, and of course, sustainable living. So this human needs map is a kind of a companion to help us with specifically this first question about what are the core needs of our stakeholder. But the human needs map can also be used in different areas of the canvas, and I can share with you that later, but you can ask the question. Let's say if you're doing the competitive landscape section, you can ask the question, which of these needs do our competition fulfill? And you go, oh, they're fulfilling this. What are some of the needs that are not being fulfilled? Okay, maybe this can be a way for us to, let's say, create a blue ocean. So there are creative ways in which we can use this human needs map as a companion to this stakeholder-centric design canvas. So we started with our stakeholder. And what emotions drive their decisions? Remember, we're dealing with people, people, people. So again, it is a human first or people first approach. And everything is moving so fast. Everything is changing so fast. And the things will continue to change. I mean, what used to take us maybe 10 hours now takes us 1 minute, and maybe in the future it'll take us 1 second. But at the very core of it, we ask the question, who do we create value for? Who are we designing for? From there, we go to the aspirations. So, what does our stakeholder dream about? And then how do they define success? And I think this definition of success can be a tangible one, but it needs to balance qualitative and quantitative. So it needs to be something like, I want to reach 10% body fat, which is like a very quantitative metric. I want to feel good. I want to have great energy levels. I want to increase my confidence, qualitative. We need to balance those. And then what must happen, using the word must here is a leverage point. I learned that from Anthony Robbins, where he says, you want to create leverage? Change your should to must. What must happen for them to succeed? So there we go. We've got our stakeholder, right? We've got the aspirations. And from there, we then go down to project success and we ask, from an organizational standpoint, from a corporate standpoint, from a business standpoint, what key metrics will improve, qualitative and quantitative, as an outcome of this project succeeding? What is the estimated ROI? What assumptions must we validate? And again, what evidence do we have? Whether it's assumptions about our own capacity, resources, efficacy, about our competition, about our stakeholder, about our services, about our products. So many assumptions to validate. And then, of course, how does this project support our stakeholder success? So we need to be able to have a holistic conversation. We can't be doing something here and they're over there. It's really around bridging the gap. So there we go. We've got the first 3 sections: our stakeholder, aspirations, project success. Again, I'm going through the full flow. We then go to industry insights. So this is more about a future exploration. But remember, we're not in solution mode. This is purely an exploratory or discovery canvas. But having the conversation around industry insights and future trends informs and allows us to start to look at the context, the business context, and it also allows us to perhaps validate some of the directions or some of the areas that we want to explore. And from there, of course, we then look at what the competition is doing. So what is our competitive landscape? What's happening? What needs are they fulfilling? What products and services are they creating that delivers value to our stakeholders? And then, again, as I mentioned, we could look at our human needs matrix and look at maybe even to run a competitive kind of analysis, like this competitor is successful because they are really addressing these core needs, whilst this competitor is not doing so well because they're not, maybe they're in a red ocean. They're kind of like, they're all going after the same, the same thing. So from after the competitive landscape, we then move into risks and constraints. So that conversation there is from project success, right? We look at the industry insights and future trends. We go back to our competitive landscape and look at the as is, and then look at the risks and constraints around the execution of the project. And then, of course, back to our beautiful stakeholder, as is. What is the current situation of our stakeholder? As a positive psychology practitioner, I always start with the positive. People are always quick to say, they're not happy about this, they're not happy about this, they hate that. And I'm like, okay, surely there's something that they like. Surely there's something that they appreciate about your product, about your service, about your company, about your culture. So I highly recommend that we always start with the positive. And then, this in no way does this replace real research work, real ethnography, real immersion. But perhaps you already have those insights or around what are their frustrations and annoyances, and what do they voice and what do they express explicitly. And as you know, there are a lot of times when there are pain points and frustrations and annoyances that are not expressed for whatever reason. There are many reasons. So the other question we might ask ourselves. It's like the Johari window in coaching, you know, it's like a blind spot. So they might even not be aware of it. So it's really important for us to really explore this as is situation and look at the different cues. And my advice is, you can ask and listen, you can watch and observe, but you can also do. And when you do yourself, you learn so much from that experience. From there, we go to our technology and enablers. And I call them enablers because, you know, technology, be it AI, large language models, what's happening now with the with some of the video is really, really incredible. And also the agents. So it's moving so fast. But technology will continue to move fast. And, you know, new products, new services will continue to emerge. So I always view these as enablers that support our journey of innovation and support our success in order to co-create value for our stakeholders. I find that quote, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail, comes in very handy here. It's like, you know, I have these glasses, you need to buy them, you need to, it's like, man, I don't want your glasses. No, you do want these glasses. So put the glasses aside, listen to me. You know, I have a problem hearing, so your glasses won't do anything for me. So I think it's important for us to have the discipline, even if we have huge sales targets, and even if we have, you know, this really, really aspirational view to succeed, and really, really want to believe that our products and services will bring value to our stakeholders, we need to have the discipline to stop and have this conversation before we go into solutioning mode. And I find that to be one of the most difficult things to do for people who are used to just waking up in the morning and doing, right? From there, we move to our to-be state. What is the perfect future state of our stakeholder? And again, that leverage point, what must change for their experience to improve or to be enhanced? And then you ask the question, what insights can we now deduce? And I've heard, you know, I've seen or heard the word insights being thrown around and being used. But really the question is, what is an insight? You know, and from my experience studying as well with again, companies like IDEO and HPI and even INSEAD, and really trying to get a better understanding of what an insight is, because I've heard that word being used in so many different contexts, design context, academic context, business context. For me, an insight is a deduction. It really is an outcome of immersion and being really surrounding ourselves with these sights and sounds and smells and coats and of our stakeholder, and really always just, you know, kind of absorbing and then allowing, just like in coaching where the real magic happens after the coaching session. The insights are derived after, you know, we've interacted and immersed and conversed. You know, you're sitting and saying, the aha moment. So an insight I view as a deduction. It's intuitive, but it's built on real data and based on real qualitative and quantitative validated data. And again, it's sticky, it's memorable, and it's non-obvious. And then as an outcome of all this wonderful work we've done with our teams, we are now ready to frame what are known as how might we questions, like any good designer. Before you go into the solutioning mode, you know, in coaching we say, you know, everybody has their answers, they just haven't been asked the right questions. So really, the outcome of all of this exercise is not to come up with any solutions, especially if you're going through the full flow. It's to frame powerful questions that will inform the design process. It's to frame powerful questions that will mitigate risk. It will frame powerful questions that will enable valuable progress in the innovation space. So how might we? How is open-ended. Might is aspirational. We is collaborative. As I mentioned, this is the full flow of going through all of the nine categories. What I'd like to share with you now is just an example of the 3 other flows that you can use also in case you'd like to explore that. So the empathy flow, that's shorter, starts with stakeholder, it goes to as is, it goes to aspirations, it goes to 2B, it goes to project risks, and then it ends with project success. So that's a faster flow that you can run, which is really the empathy flow. So that goes, there you go, stakeholder, as is, aspirations, 2B, risks, project success. So that can be used really to get quick insights on your stakeholders purely from an empathy standpoint. Strategy flow. Again, we start with the stakeholder, people first, right? And then we go to project success. And then we move to having conversation around the risks and constraints. And then we look at the 2B, and then we look at enablers. So this is another flow that's really more about, okay, you know, from an organizational standpoint, we know that this is what we're trying to accomplish. Here's how we view this project can bring value to the organization. Here are some of the risks and constraints. Here's the 2B state. Here are the technology and enablers. And this could be existing resources, again, like using the taxonomy from the Strategyzer guys. You know, this could potentially also be the resources that you have as an organization. You know, what existing resources, what existing technology can you leverage in order to support this 2B state of the stakeholder being aligned with your project success, right? So that's the second flow, shorter flow. And the third flow is an innovation flow, pretty straightforward. Again, we start with stakeholder, we go to 2B state, we look at, we go to 2B state, we look at the enablers that can support that 2B state. From there, we look at industry trends, what's happening on the horizon. We look at project success, and we end with the risks and constraints. So that's another example of a flow that we could run that is more future-oriented and works towards the innovation space. So, thank you very, very much for your attention, and I really, really hope that this has been useful and valuable. And again, this is a tool that I created really as a pain point to kind of like elevate my own pain points of trying to bridge the design conversation and really try to find a way to have a holistic dialogue that brings together, you know, what's really important in the design conversation, what's important in the strategy conversation, or what's important in the innovation conversation. This is the QR code for the Stakeholder-Centric Design Canvas. It's licensed under Creative Commons, so you're welcome to download it, use it, share it, mix it, remix it. And I'm always curious to see what different flows and what different applications you may have, and how you can iterate and refine on this. I'm always open to feedback, and do share in the comments if this has been a useful tool and how you plan to leverage it, whether it's in your sprints or in your strategy conversations or in your design work. So thank you again for your time, for your attention, and I wish you all the best on your journey, on your innovation journey. And as we say, people first, purpose driven, business smart.